All right. I think it's live. I'd just like to say welcome everybody to tonight's DevChat Late Night. Tonight we're going to start the first session presenting uh, our four-part series on Drupal and DevChat Late Night. Tonight we're going to start the first session. All right, sorry, that was me. So as always, we're going to be streaming live. So everybody hop on, and that is right now. So please do feel free to ask questions during the presentation and the lesson, and we'll try to handle those or fit it into the demonstration as we can. So for the lineup of the sessions, session one tonight is Drupal Site Building, and Chad's obviously going to talk more about that. And then the next couple weeks we got coming up, so session 2 is Drupal Site Building 2. I think it's more about Contrib modules, menus, site administration, and some site setup things. Session 3, Drupal theming, and session 4, Beyond the Basics. So, tonight's session 1, and then in a week we've got 2, and another week 3, and another week 4. So make sure to tune in, and if you're watching this recorded, then catch us on the next one. So we've got with us Chad Peppers and cheers, Chad.
Cheers.
Indeed.
I'm drinking best damn cherry cola. It's alcoholic cherry cola.
Excellent. I think you were trying was it root beer the other night?
I was.
All right. Well, here at Late Night, beers are accepted. So I'm just going back to the old trusty quarters.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Right. Hey, man, I'm really excited to have you back. You presented for, I think, session 2, and that was kind of an introduction to Drupal, and we've gotten some positive feedback. So really, I just wanted to go more in depth with Drupal. You kind of established it's a pretty kick-ass content management system, and really, so I think you're going to be going into a bit more of a deep dive. Yeah, with that, I said let's kick this off.
Okay. And yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Our last episode was going over Drupal, just what it was and how it worked, and we used Drupal 7 kind of explain. But as we all know, there's probably 100,000 Drupal 7 videos out there, and what we're going to do in these 4 videos, or these 4 screencasts, we're going to actually build a Drupal 8 site. So it's kind of one of those things that's new to everybody, and so I'm still even new to it, but for the most part, we'll build a basic Drupal 8 site. We're going to use the car theme. We're going to stick with it. Add it more of a car club is what we decided to do. So on this first one, we're just going to kind of set up our Drupal site, add some content types, some views, kind of just get a base Drupal 8 instance going, and then we'll progressively build on top of that. Eventually, hopefully the last one, we'll have a full working Drupal 8 site, probably pretty basic, and then maybe later we can build, more advanced stuff. So with that being said, we'll just hop in.
Awesome. Hey, Chad. Thanks for the introduction. So you've gone over an introduction of the course, but I just kind of want to express the badassery of you and Drupal. So you've worked on some pretty substantial projects with some large clients at a very reputable shop that's here in Kansas City. Do you mind just going in real short so we can give a little background and people can see where you're coming from?
Yeah, sure. I probably should have done that at the beginning. I actually meant to do that, but you know how it goes. So yeah, I work for VML, which is a digital agency out of Kansas City. They're a global agency. Actually, just got listed in the top 10 agencies in a magazine called, I think, Ad Age or something like that. So that's a big deal. And we do Drupal among many other things, but that's just kind of one wing of the company. I've been doing Drupal for probably I think 6, 7 years now, um, and really that's what I've been doing for about 6 years straight. So that's all I do is eat, breathe, and sleep Drupal. So
And
I also do a little bit of side work, freelance work. Um, so I get off my full time job Drupal and I come home and I Drupal every day. I'm Drupaling.
every day I'm brushing it.
Yeah,
Not to give away what you're going to talk about here soon, but okay. Hey, thanks, man.
oh, hey, we got somebody referencing my Fight Club shirt here.
Oh,
This is a Target special, but it's one of my favorite shirts.
nice.
So okay, all right. Well, I guess I'll just hop right into it.
Let's do this. Share your
All right,
screen. That's what
let
you
me do. Let me share it. Okay, so let me just. All right, so you guys can see my screen now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna use Drush to install it, to install Drupal 8. But um, let's go ahead and I'm gonna show you basically where Drush is. If you go to drush.ws, it redirects you to the GitHub repo here. And if you scroll down, um, I won't go over installing this, but there's resources on how to install it. It's fairly easy. If you're on a Windows machine, it may be a little bit more tedious because they don't keep it up to date quite as much, but I think it still works. But basically, you can just walk through the install process, and it's basically just the global commands PHP files that you can execute.
Okay.
Um,
So what does Drush stand for then?
um, Actually, that is a great question.
Oh man. Well, I'll tell you, and it'll make
You put me on the spot already.
okay. Well, it'll make total sense. Hey, I'm gonna keep doing that. You know, we like
Hmm.
to keep it real in these interviews. So it's Drush shell. You know, S.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Drupal
I
shell.
mean, Drupal shell. Yeah, totally makes sense. So, just quick note, like this is okay. If you're using Drupal, then you're not using WordPress for or something else for some reason. So, if you're using Drupal, do yourself the favor and use Drush. If you're not, then that's one of the qualifications. I would say you're not a Drupal professional.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. And you might as well, if you're new to Drupal, you might as well get in the mindset of using Drush instead of pushing it off because it is an essential tool. It's a lifesaver because there's some times where you got it, your site's down, you got to use Drush to get it back up. So it is really an essential tool, and it does so many things that once you start using it, you won't go back to regular. But I did want to reference that just in case if anybody's following along and they can pause or come back and install Drupal or install Drush. Um, but what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to use Drush to install Drupal. But um, if you don't have Drush at this time, just go in here and download download Drupal right here on Drupal.org. And just place it somewhere in your where you want it, and just we're going to assume that they at least the people watching at least know how to set up a site, I guess, on there, right? We're not going to go through that, but just giving you reference of where it is to download. So
And I'm also pretty excited to let you know that in very short amount of time, you're going to be able to have a one-click Drupal installation. to the cloud that will help you manage with some of these essential tools.
Yes, that is correct. AlphaStax, the presenter of this tonight, is going to have cloud hosting and all that good stuff. One click install, and you're going to have up and running a nice little Drupal instance with all the goodies.
Yeah, with root. But hey, man, I'm excited to see this website get up. Show me what you got.
Okay, so the first thing, like I said, we're going to do is install it with Drush. So the first command we're going to run here is the Drush download, and I like to use a flag called Drupal-project-rename. And what this does is normally if you just do a Drush, you can just run Drush DL and it downloads Drupal, and you can call it a day. But if you do the project rename, it renames the folder. So by default, it'll name it like Drupal-8 dot whatever. But if you do the project rename flag, you can actually give it the name of the folder. So I'm gonna give it Car Club because in our website we're gonna build a car club scenario here. So as you can see. Do you think my font's big enough, or do I need to? You think it's readable?
Let's see. To me, I can see, but I'm on a smaller screen, being a laptop. However, I've got Retina. I'd say maybe if you plus it up, a font size, maybe 2.
Let's see if we can. Can I do that in here?
Oh gosh! Oh man, you're putting me on the spot now.
You're supposed to be.
You should be able to go into preferences and just increase your font size there.
All right, here we go.
That's going to be another benefit of having a cloud-based IDE.
Oh man, don't give away all the secrets, but yeah, for sure.
It will be full platform as a service.
I'm gonna move this guy up to like 18. This is like old man style hair.
Actually, yeah, that is quite a bit better, man. Thank you.
There we go. We like to go off the, what do you call it, off the cuff?
Yeah, right. I mean, it is late.
Hey, now I'm going to resize it because it's so big. Okay. So.
But
all right. Now we got old man font here. All right, you can see that it said Project Drupal downloaded to this path, and it was successful. And then it kind of just tells you what was downloaded, which is pretty much just all the stuff in Drupal.
So is that an opportunity where somebody might be wanting to consider what subdomain they'd be setting up? Like if they're planning on using Drupal for just blogging, for example, would they, for example, want to be calling that like that directory blog or whatnot, or is this something where you'd mainly focus on putting it into the www root or the public HTML?
Well, I mean, it depends on how your environment's set up. Now, if you're on a server where the only thing you're going to be running is Drupal, ultimately, yeah, you would just put it in your www or wherever your Apache. But in my instance, since I run several websites and I use a virtual host environment, I pretty much just tell Apache what the domain is and then what directory it is. So then it knows. Actually, I could probably pull that up.
Ooh, that looks like an alias right there. Nice usage.
Yeah, I have an alias. And just to let you know, I'm running XAMPP, which is just an Apache on Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It's pretty basic. But what I'm doing here is I have this little virtual host, and it's saying carclub.localhost.com is pointing to this directory. And some of this stuff down here is not necessary. I just use copy and paste. But you do want allow override all, so you can use htaccess. And then some of these options up here are probably necessary, like follow symbolic links. I'm not quite sure, but I usually just end up copying and pasting the same thing.
Awesome.
So that's
when you visit the site, then that server name right there is what you're gonna use in order to get there.
yeah. So what that does is another place on my host file where I tell it this if I go to that domain, carclub.localhost.com, point it to 127.0.0.1. So basically, it's just pointing to my computer. And then what that does is Apache says, is there an entry for carclub.localhost.com? Yes, there is, and then the root directory is at this location.
Okay.
So you'll use vhost if you have a server that has a lot of different domains, or you could use it for one domain. But mainly, I use it for when there's several domains. I can just tell Apache where to look for the website.
Right. So it's both got relevancy on the server and also like you're showing us here.
So
yeah.
If you're just doing local development, could you? Is that a situation where you maybe consider your host file?
Well, I do use the host file and the virtual host.
Cool.
So yeah, on my local, I have to, because the host file basically is just overriding. Instead of going out to Google or wherever my DNS server is pointed to and saying, give me the IP of carclub.localhost.com, because then I would never get an IP back. Instead, I'm telling my host file, don't even go out and ask the DNS server, just know that it's at 127.0.0.1. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Sure, yes, thank you.
That's a great way of putting it. I wasn't even thinking about skipping the DNS, but from a network perspective, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because then what that does is allow the vhost. It allows me to have as many websites on my local or on your server as you want. You don't have to worry about setting up a whole nother environment, running a whole nother vagrant box. And I like vagrant boxes, and I do use them, and but for the most part, doing Drupal development, I can do a lot of it locally. But with that being said, you can set up a virtual box or something that does the same thing as well. So just really depends on what you want to do.
Right. So it looks like you got you used Drush to download Drupal. You got that. You got version 8 downloaded. Okay, where are we at?
Okay, so now I'm going to change directory into Drupal now that it's installed. And I'm sorry, now that it's downloaded, and then I'm going to go ahead and install it. So to do that, you have to go into Sites and then Default. And there is a default.settings.php file. So I need to copy that into a settings.php. Then I need to make a files directory, and that's where it's going to hold all the CMS files, like if you were to download images and all that good stuff. And the next thing I need to do is make them writable. I'm going to give them full permission just because it's local and I'm not concerned with security. And now I'm going to do a command called drush site install. Oops. And there's a flag db-url, which gives you you're telling Drush where the location is of your MySQL database.
Nice. So you're skipping a lot of what the normal Drupal install screens would be like on your local host via your web browser.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And actually, before we do this, let me just so since we downloaded it, it's in the directory. One step I did not do whenever I created my virtual host was I did not restart Apache.
Didn't have the
So
setting.
I have another little alias to restart it, called Apache Restart. And to restart Apache, it really depends on what you're using, because a lot of times the commands are different. So I could show you how I restart Apache, but it could vary depending on what you're using. So
Right.
if you need to consult that, look to Google. Google will probably tell you. So now I should be able to go to carclub.localhost.com, and so now I'm at the Drupal install screen.
Ooh.
So if I was to try to install right now via the web, I could, however, it's telling me my settings.php file is not writable because PHP needs to be able to write to the settings.php to basically write the database connection information to it. So what I'm going to do is you can either make it writable, or we're going to try to use Drush to install it.
Fancy.
So Drush site install, and then database URL equals. And if you have a remote database, then I'm assuming this probably works. But since mine is localhost, basically what I'm doing is username root. If you do have a password, I believe colon, and then the password. But I do not have a password on my local MySQL instance. So hopefully no elite hackers are listening in right now. Okay.
They'll find the honeypot. Yeah, go ahead.
So that's it really on this one. Sorry. / and then you need to put the name of the database. And this database does not have to exist. Drush will actually create the database. So let's name it just name it Car Club.
Nice.
And it'll ask you, you're about to create the Car Club database. Do you want to continue? And I think if it already exists, it may ask you if you want to dump the database or something like that. So it may actually, if it already exists, dump all the tables. So do you want to continue? Yes. And it says starting Drupal installation. And you just have to sit here and wait. I don't think it normally takes this long.
Meanwhile, this show is brought to you by... No, I'm just messing.
Meanwhile, I need to take a drink of my best damn cherry cola.
All right. Finish my beer. I might have to get another one.
Okay, so that actually took a lot longer than I don't think it's ever taken that long. So anyway, so one thing you will notice, someone might end up skipping and wondering, how do I get on the website? But it'll give you a username and password here. What I always do is I always end up using Drush UPW, which is short for update password. And then I do -password, and then password admin, and then space the username. So basically I'm changing the password to admin. And so now if I go back up and refresh the page, I've got Drupal installed here. And should I go right into content types, or should I show should I go in and show how to install it without Drush, or just, it's pretty straightforward, but you think we should go into that?
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of a biased third party
I'd say we could reference it, and we can put some links in the description.
Okay, yeah, it's very easy, and probably if you don't have Drush installed, just really, if you've ever installed any kind of program ever, um, it's pretty straightforward. Um, as long as you can make it to the Drupal install screen and you know how to make a folder called files in the site's default and then make your settings writable, whichever operating system you're on, it's pretty straightforward on how to do it. So there's probably a lot of references out there. Okay, so first thing I always end up doing when I build sites is Drupal likes to add a bunch of blocks places that I don't want them. So what I end up doing is just moving them out. So the user account menu, or I guess this actually goes into I need to reference what this is. So Drupal likes to work off what's called a block system and a region system. And what that is in your theme, you can create what's called regions. And basically, that can be thought of like just any region on a website. So the header, main content, a footer, a sidebar, anything like that can be considered a region. And Drupal has what's called blocks, which is basically it's a block of information or content or HTML, and you can place those blocks into regions. And really, that's essentially how Drupal works, is by outputting blocks into regions. And one of the regions or one of the blocks is the main page content, and that really is.
So it looks like these are some of the blocks that come by default, right?
Yeah, Drupal has blocks that come by default, and those are called system blocks.
Okay.
But then Drupal also works in, I guess we can move right into it. Drupal works in a modular type system. So there's modules that are built into the core of Drupal. So actually, let me go ahead and load up Drupal here, the one that we oops. Hold on. My little Google Hangout thing was in the way of my trying to choose.
Oh, no.
Oh, I click hide. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'll go ahead and load up Drupal here. And you can see, do you think this, can you guys read this? What's going on here?
Again, I can, but I don't know. I've got Retina. So, Josh, what do you say? Well, man, Josh has got a 40.
What about eBar is in the chat here? eBar, which is a good friend of mine.
Looks good to me.
Okay, so I'll just briefly go over this just in case, you know, someone's new that's kind of following along here, interested in Drupal and how it works. So it works in a modular-based system, and what Drupal does is there's what's called built-in core modules, and it's decided by the community, each version of Drupal that comes out of what should be included into the core modules. And from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, quite a bit of new modules entered into the core, like views, which you guys are familiar with, and from the last episode. That was not a core module in Drupal 7, and now it is. The NTD API is another one. So,
which is great, because those are normally a couple of the first things that you're going to be adding anyways.
Yeah. I mean, NTD reference is almost used on every single page or site I've ever built. Various other modules, menu block isn't now in there, and stuff like that. And so the reason I say that is that for one, just to know that Drupal's modular based, and then also to know that in your modules you can create blocks. So a lot of these, for example, you see here it says the block help block is from the help module, and if you look in here, there is a help module here. So somewhere probably in the plugins, here's a help block.php. So I'm kind of digressing here, but this help block plugin from the help module is right here. So just kind of referencing to show you that you can create your own blocks and modules, and some core modules have blocks. So
right. So essentially, I could create a folder underneath modules and provide maybe, I know in Drupal 7 it was a 3 different files that were a minimum default, and then something would appear here in the UI, right? You would find it in the files.
In Drupal 7, there's 2 files that are required to make a module, and that would be the info file and the module file. And it's pretty similar in Drupal 8, except it's not an info file anymore, it's a YAML file. And we probably won't go over that much this session, but as we get into building the site more, maybe like the second or third, we'll probably actually create a module to kind of show. Okay. So anyway, main thing I was focused on here is to know that there's regions and there's blocks. Blocks have content and they go into regions. But what I like to do is just get rid of I like to get rid of all these blocks they place by default, like the breadcrumbs. One of the things in Drupal, different in Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, I do want to mention, is status messages used to have to exist in your theme, or that's where you put it, but now they're blocks, which is great because the messages that will give you error messages or status messages, you can now place them in different regions, which is pretty nice. Also, the page title, that used to be a template thing, and now it's a block as well, which is pretty nice. Tabs used to be in the templates, various things like that. So if you're following along and you've built in Drupal 7 before, you'll understand what kind of difference that is. So we'll leave the old powered by Drupal. Everybody likes that on their site. And let's go back to the home. So now I'm kind of basically got just some tabs up here, the content, and got my powered by Drupal thing down here at the bottom. I think we'll just go now. We'll go into just building our website. I'm going to start with the content types. And under structure, and I'll just briefly go over what content types are. We went into more detail last time on what content types were. Basically, they're just content of the website, and they can be thought of as objects or any kind of information you're trying to capture and display in Drupal. And for our website, we're building a car club. So one of the content types obviously is going to be a vehicle content type. So we'll go ahead and just start building that. We'll name it vehicle. And description is used for if you want to describe what this content type is used for, just in case if you have anybody adding content. So I'll just put used for creating new vehicles.
Yep, you get into bigger sites and you got a bunch of different content types with different kinds of fields. You got multiple developers on it, especially when you're onboarding. Then that's definitely cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's if you have content administrators, you may want to provide a little bit more information on that. So there's various options you can give for content types. You have the option of previewing before submitting. And if you're using more of a workflow system where you have like managers that are going to manage the content to, copyright or whatever, you may use previewing or required, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we're just going to disable that. You do have some various options for content type: promoted to front page, sticky at the top of list, create a new revision. Again, some workplaces that are more strict on content, like if you have a blog site or say you have a news site, the manager may require them to create a new revision of if they're making any changes, and then it goes through the whole workflow process of, this, that, and the other.
Nice, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's one you might, and then sticky at the top of lists, that's more of a flag in the system. So if you have content that may be considered sticky, or that if you were wanting to display a list of certain blog posts, but you wanted this one to always appear at the top, then you may want to give them the options of these are just default options. So by default, if you want it to be checked or not, but that's kind of what it's used for. Promoted to front page, if you want that flag, then you can use it. But by default, I only go published. That's usually almost 99 out of 100 times I build content types. I don't use any of these. I usually just default to the being published, and that's it. Display author and date information. I always end up unchecking this because if I want to display author and date information, then I will build it to do that itself. I don't usually allow Drupal to do that by default.
Right. However, if there was somebody that wanted to use it as more of a blog, then that definitely could be a useful thing to keep checked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you're new and fresh too.
Yeah, if you're new and it works, and you want just a basic blog and it displays your information and it works for you, then I would use it. If not, like I said, I leave it unchecked. The menu settings is if you want this content type to be able to be placed in a menu through the content management portion of it. You can always uncheck this and still add it to a menu, but you just have to do it manually. So on our vehicles, we probably don't want to add a particular vehicle to a menu. So I'm just going to uncheck it. And so...
Oh man, I'm excited. It's like we got a content type set up. So we got our vehicle content type up, and we're going to add some fields on this guy?
Yeah, and yeah, we're going to add fields. So without going into great detail what fields are, they're basically properties on the content type. And there's different types of field. So if you think about it, when you're trying to capture content, what information do you want to capture about it? And you can kind of just figure out what type of field you want to use. And you can have a Boolean field, a comment field, date, email. There's a whole list. So really, you just kind of play with it and figure out what you want. For our vehicle, some of the fields that come into mind in the car club would be probably trying to think.
Yeah, make, model, and year, certainly.
Yeah, make, model, and year. Probably maybe color. You think that would be one? Maybe color.
Yeah, definitely could. I mean, possibly you could even do gas type, but it really depends on how deep we want to go here.
Yeah, and we'll just do the basics at first.
Sure.
So the first one I'll do then is the most obvious. We're going to want an image. So we'll name one called vehicle image. We'll hit save and continue. And here's some of the options. You can have a default image if you're creating a vehicle and you may not have an image. You could upload one, but we won't do that. And we'll just go, let's set it unlimited. So essentially what we'll allow is probably these vehicles along the line will have users that sign up for the site that can upload their images of their vehicles that they own. So we'll assume that they want to be able to upload as many images as they want, right? So here's some various settings, and since time permitting, we won't go through the details of all these, but almost all of these can be set to default. You don't have to do anything here. But if you really want to manage and control the output and the maximum resolution and all that good stuff, you can just play around with that to what you need. One thing I will tell you in Drupal 8, there's an alt field, and it requires you to put an alt tag on the image itself. And I'm going to uncheck that, which is probably good practice to put an alt tag on every single image, and you can require it. But for our demonstrative purposes, we're going to just uncheck that.
Cool. So you get maybe some SEO boosts or something.
Yeah, you get SEO boost and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Maybe some accessibility. Let's go ahead and what I'll do is, since we got about 15 minutes, I'll go ahead and we'll get all the vehicles set up. And one of the things is we're going to want, like you said, the make and the model. So normally what I would do is probably create this as a taxonomy term. And a taxonomy, and what it is it tells you right here, taxonomy is used for categorizing content. And so if you really think about it, make and model is a perfect example on how to categorize content. So let's go ahead and make, and this is the name of the taxonomy vocabulary. And we'll add a couple terms. What's a couple makes that we can add, or what could we use here?
I mean, let's do Honda.
Honda. And let's add one more, probably Ford. Ford's a good one. Let's go ahead and do Chevrolet. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a term. So a taxonomy is it's vocabulary, and then the terms are inside of the vocabulary.
Right. So let's say maybe on Facebook, if you're doing a hashtag or something, it's likely that that's a taxonomy.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, you could.
Maybe tags, right? Okay, cool.
Tags, like on a blog post, if you want to tag it, whatever, you know how you always, on a blog post at the end, it says like tags, and it has all the categories of the blog post. That would be a perfect example of using taxonomy.
Yep.
But it's not the only purpose. So really what happens is when you think about taxonomy, it's in your content types. How do you want to categorize? If you want content categorized together, taxonomy is the way to go. So okay, let's do model then. So model is another way we can categorize vehicles. So let's do what do we add? Ford. So there's a Mustang.
Accord.
Yeah, Accord.
Civic, so we can add two for the same.
Yeah, let's do Corvette, my personal favorite here.
My wife's too.
All right, so we added those, so now we got a make and model here. So just to show you in the model, we have all of them now. And so what we'll do is we'll go back to our content type, and let's add these taxonomy fields. So under here, you're going to have a reference taxonomy term, and name this make. And we're going to limit it to one because a vehicle can really only be one make. And Ebar on the chat here has got a good point that most of the UI in Drupal 8 is similar to Drupal 7, and he's exactly right. There's one thing they did, the code behind Drupal 8 is, quite a bit different, but the UI is better, but still stays pretty similar. All right, so the make. So one of the things when you create a taxonomy reference, and a reference is basically saying that you have the ability to take that content and tag it with a reference to whatever you point it to. So in this instance, we're referencing taxonomy terms. And since the field is our make, we're going to put we're going to make sure that we reference the make vocabulary, and we could reference all three of them, but it would only make sense in this instance to do make. So now we got our make and our vehicle image, and then we'll add one more, which is the model, and limit it to one because the vehicle can really only be. And one thing I did forget on the other one, we should make this a required field. So when they are creating the vehicles, we ensure that they do put a model and a make, just so, because a vehicle, it definitely needs a make and a model. So now we got our body, make, model, and vehicle. And the body would be probably the description of the vehicle, someone's personal description of their vehicle, like so in our instance in the car club, if you sign up, you create your vehicles, you set the make, the model, the vehicles, and then the body would be the content. So you could type out, this is my baby, I love this vehicle, blah, blah, blah. And the last one we'll add, before moving on, we'll do the we will add a year, and then click save here, and let's make that required as well. And so now we have all the information we want to capture about a vehicle at this time. So well, what I'll do is I'll finish off with actually creating some vehicles.
Dude, make me a vehicle.
What kind do we got here?
Man.
Let's do, what was that, what's one of those, let's look at the old Mustangs. What was like a good year of the Mustang? Was it like 60 something?
64.
What was it?
64.
64, I knew it was like around that. So.
It's the first year, 64 and a half.
Yeah, these look good here.
So just as a note, if you don't want to do an integer, you can do a decimal as well. All right.
Yeah, and actually I set that one as I didn't even put any restriction on it, but you can get a little bit more restricted, which I probably should have, and require an integer. But that one I just made a straight text field. So technically, they could go on here and put like bird as the year, and it won't do any error checking. So you can get more restrictive, but for testing purposes we won't. So I'm going to put this 1964 Mustang. What's a name? What's a good pet name for? What's the name of your vehicle? I know you give your vehicle a name, right?
I mean, so it's always Sally, right?
What is it?
Sally.
Sally?
Yeah, Mustang Sally.
Mustang. Yeah, hey, that's good. Mustang. here is my, so this will be the description. So put yourself in the position of some car club member, and he's wanting to describe, his Mustang. Here's my baby here. It rides like the wind or something, I don't know. I just made that up. But so and then we'll upload. He wanted to upload his image. Don't know why this happened, but it may be because I think this happened last time we were on here. It's because the files folder was not writable. So I'm gonna go back in here and force it to be writable again. And let's try this again. Let's give it a try again. There we go. So now he comes up, and the make is a Ford. And one thing is, if you're not familiar with a Drupal, you have what's called the autocomplete field. So it's just like anything. When you start typing, it's going to drop down a list. It's going to search and find what you're looking for. And then the model is the Mustang. And this is a 1964. And let's go ahead and save and publish it. And so there she is right there, looking pretty.
That's a beauty.
It is. And so here you can see my body that I put. Here's my baby. It rides like the wind. And then here's the image, and then the make, model, and year. And so right now it's completely unformatted, obviously, but we just want to demonstrate on how to create these and display them. And I think on the next episode we'll probably go through setting up our site more, actually configuring it and the various other configuration that you want to do to get your site going. We'll install some modules that we'll use, create some views and various other stuff, and then go from there. And eventually we'll slap a theme in here and create it and all that good stuff. So.
Nice. So pretty much what I've seen is that you've taken drush command in order to download Drupal. You added some vhost and some host file stuff in order to make it more easily accessible. Okay, so then after that, let's see, use drush to install.
Yep.
And that was quality. And so after drush installed, then you kind of took us through the basics of setting up a website. So really you've got the tools in order to, and you can even script the download because you're doing it on a command line, of course. So you downloaded, installed, and then you showed us a little bit of the install. So I mean, I think that while the website doesn't look gorgeous or anything, you've done a lot of the hard work in order to get the files, get the database set up, get the content management system running. So it'll be really cool in the follow-up video seeing how this part really transforms to the UI and the rest of the pieces. Okay, so I'm looking on chat right now to see if we have any questions. And I don't see those right now. So I guess I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
First up, let's say, all right, so I've set up this content type, right? I've got vehicles, and I've imported one. How about if I've got a bunch of them, and I don't want to have to type each of those lines? What's the solution I should do?
You're saying if you have a...
I'm kind of going toward feed imports.
Okay, are you talking about content types or actual content?
Actual content.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's say if I'm migrating, or if I got a database of a bunch of stuff, and I just want to populate all of these, or a content type with all of these different nodes, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, Drupal makes that has a couple modules for that. One's called the migrate module, and one's called feeds. And the migrate module is the feeds to me is a little bit more. If you have a straightforward way of importing it, you're just mapping one data source to another, and they line up pretty easily. You can use feeds. So if you have like a CSV of information that's lined up perfectly to your content type fields, then feeds could be the way to go. Migrate is more of a complex way of basically you can manipulate the data as it's migrating. So if you need more rules in code to handle that migration, you'd want to use the migrate module. And I've done quite a bit of migrating data before, so I have quite a bit of experience. So migrate module, if you have a straightforward way of migrating data, feeds might be the answer. Otherwise, use the migrate module. And I believe both of them are on Drupal 8 now.
Awesome. Okay, and this is Drupal 8, so I don't know if there's an answer to this. However, I think there should be. What do you think about, okay, images? If I'm going to upload an image, but I take it on my cell phone or on my whatever camera, and let's say I got like an 8 megabyte or 16. So if I've got like a really large photo, are there what tools can Drupal use in order to manage the display of the images that I upload?
Yeah, Drupal has a built-in editor for, or we call it editor. It's called image styles, and basically you can set up rules on how you like crop an image or max size, max width, all that good stuff. And there's various other modules that you can use to handle additional image styles that aren't included in the core. But for the most part, that is handled by image style. There is another one. Let me look up. There's a really cool module. It's called Drupal image field crop.
Yes, yes.
And it's actually a really good module. So it hooks into the image field, and it actually provides a way of cropping it right there on the fly, which is
even
really
does. Yeah, so it'll crop it on the fly. At least the one from Drupal 7 had all sorts of plugins that you could. It would even take a photo and crop on faces, for example. And it's got the things that you could think about, like constraining XY proportions. Of course, I mean, I guess that would be pretty obvious. I think you can make multiple different image sizes and croppings and have those display in different circumstances, right? So let's say if you've got like a list of teasers. So essentially, here's the short about my article. I could show an image with a certain cropping and resizing. Let's say I want it to be 250 by 250, and then whenever I get to the article itself, then I could display it in a different way, right?
Yeah, correct. And it looks like almost all of the image crop fields, from what I'm looking at, there's a whole list of them. Actually, there's a lot of different image crop modules. If you just look up Drupal image crop.
Just read off a couple that you think are the most pertinent right now.
Well, honestly, I have not used these, but looking at this, there's two of them that supposedly, and I say that because a lot of modules are on Drupal 8, but they may not be fully functional. But there's two that actually say that they actually have a Drupal 8 release, and it's called EPSA crop and focal point. But focal point, Actually, focal point. Sorry, that's not really a cropping tool. That is a tool that allows you to specify the portion of the image that is most important, um, and somehow it's used to crop. But um,
Yeah, so we could say, for example, we're always taking a team photo with something in the background, or we've got all of the cars that are going to be in the lower left hand. Let's use that as a focal point and crop.
mm, yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm assuming it probably hooks into image styles and says like this is the focal point, because a lot of times with the image styles, it doesn't know which the most important part of the photo is. So I'm assuming that's kind of like a way of doing that.
cool.
But I guess that is a plug for if you are looking for modules to port over to Drupal 8 and contribute back to the community. Image crops look like that'd be the way to go.
Yeah, right. Definitely highly useful. All right, looks like we're about 5 minutes over. I really wanted to take a chance for a little bit of Q&A. I had asked a question that somebody on chat had, so thank you for addressing those. So looking forward, looks like we've got, again, next week's will be on a follow-up on this. It'll be more on some Contrib modules, working with menus, site administration, and site setup. And of course, we allow tangents here, so pretty much wherever the conversation goes. But I think that this is a pretty good introduction to Drupal 8. And hey, man, thanks a lot for taking your late night in order to come have a dev chat with us.
Most
Yeah,
definitely.
thanks for having me.
That was a great presentation, man.
All right, thank you.
And again, everything you need cloud-wise provided to you by AlphaStax. We're a full-service cloud provider, and pretty much anything with technology-based. If you need consultation or anything, reach out to us, and we'll help you get it accomplished. Hey, thanks everybody for joining, and signing off. See you next week.
All right, see ya.